check yourself before you begin interacting and see if you can't compartmentalize those things and convey calm and confidence while you're interacting with the person with dementia. Find another appropriate outlet for those emotions you're having. Join a support group, call a friend, throw some rocks. I told you all about the woman who breaks the plates if you were there at St. Mary's. Do something to manage your stress and find appropriate outlets for your stress. And in the moment with the person with dementia, as best you can, convey calm and confidence. Yes?
In that realm, I used to try to tell myself that it's not my fault and that it's really not his fault.
Correct.
And that all I'm there to do is facilitate and go with the flow and not try to basically interrupt his or disturb his thought pattern, but not blame anybody, myself or himself or myself, but just to go with it.
Yeah, it's kind of a come what may kind of day, huh?
Yep.
Yep.
Every day. I mean, I try. That's what I shot for. I mean, there's some days that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Other days I could brag. Other days you can't talk about.
Well, life happens,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah.
And we all have good days and bad days, and cognitively impaired or not,
Well.
things happen, and we've got other things on our plate. None of us is caregiving in a vacuum. So.
Right.
We bring what's on our plate to the table, but we have to be aware of what's on our plate. Does that make sense? So number 3, if you don't remember anything else from these 4 hours today, remember number 3 here. Recognize that behavior, even in a confused person, more than likely results from a cause. Something triggers the behavior. If you're taking notes, please write down next to this one. Behavior is always the attempt to fill an unmet need.
Right.
Behavior is always the attempt to fill an unmet need. Behavior is always the attempt to fill an unmet need. And I'm happy to repeat it again if you need me to. Everybody got it? Okay. That's really, really important, because sometimes it can feel like their behavior is falling out of the sky, just out of the blue. I don't know why she got so upset. There was nothing going on, and she just got upset. I was teaching this class. I do trainings once a month down at Kaiser for their memory clinic, and I was teaching this class, and somebody raised their hand and said, "But my mom's does really just come out of nowhere." What if it really does? It can seem like it comes out of nowhere. The truth is, the need behind the behavior might require us to become detectives.
Right.
We might not understand the need. We might not see the need. Doesn't mean the need's not there. Yeah.
Just like with my aunt, processing time is really long. Like somebody might go visit her one day and she doesn't even recognize them, but the next day she'll say, "So-and-so came to see me," and it can take that long to get it from here to out there where she can voice it or remember it or process it or whatever. And she gets very angry, like when she's toileted and they come in and tell her, "Get up, sit down," and she gets really bad and says, "I'm tired of people ripping my clothes off," and you have to say it and let her process it and give her some time, and that's a big thing. That's take time. So you may not, it may look like it's falling out of the sky, but it could have happened 3 hours ago. What's falling out of the sky now?
Correct. So there's always something triggering the behavior. That trigger might not always be obvious to us. So we have to put on that detective cap and try to figure it out. And sometimes we can't. One time I was doing a home visit, and the wife was my client. She was caring for her husband who'd had a pretty massive stroke, and he was in a hospital bed in their living room. And I was talking with him, And he kept mumbling, because he had some aphasia, which is another symptom of stroke. Aphasia is difficulty with communication, can manifest with speech, writing, comprehension. He could articulate all right, but he had what we call word salad, where it really is just like a tossed salad of words. So he kept telling me the ceiling's under my armpit, the ceiling's under my armpit, ceiling's under my armpit. And I was thinking, well, you know, here's where I would start with the obvious, right? He's in bed looking at the ceiling. He's got all these tubes and stuff around him. Maybe something's caught under his arm.
Okay.
So I you know, start with the obvious, because if that's it, then I can fix this for him. But he kept going, ceiling's under my armpit, ceiling's under my armpit. And I tried a little bit, is it this, is it that? Ceiling's under my armpit. And finally I said to him, this must be so frustrating for you. And he said, and patted my hand. So I was able to acknowledge to him, I can't fix this.
Right.
I don't know what you're saying to me. You can't say it differently. But I see you and hear you and care about it. And that's what everybody on this planet wants, to be seen and heard and cared about. If we can convey, I see you, I hear you, I care about it, then we're doing our job. Doesn't mean I could help him with what was going on. But he didn't need me to solve his problem. He needed me to see him and hear him and care about him. He was able to calm down after that and move on.
Someone in a wheelchair is trying the same way, and all of us were trying to do the right thing. And my husband walked over to the wheelchair, to the arm, and went, damn it! And the guy smiled that big,
Yeah.
and then whammed down, because it put his feeling right out there. You understand me?
That gives me goosebumps.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's that, would I ever say that or do that to a patient? Why, horrible.
Maybe you could match where they are.
But that's, my husband understood the man's feelings, and that was it.
Yep. So I do say we should meet people with like force. You may not use that word because it might offend them or scare them.
Yeah.
But you know, if someone's very concerned about something, we should convey that we are also very concerned with helping them. Rather than, you know, it's not a big deal, right? Because then they have to get bigger and louder. If we're not feeling seen and heard, we have to get bigger and louder. Just like when my husband tells me, I don't understand why you're so upset about this. It's no big deal. Is that ever helpful? No, right? I have to get bigger and louder than I is, right? So number 3 is huge, and in fact number 3 is the basis for the entire second training.
Behavior.
Yeah. Number 4 here, to learn.
Alex,
Yes.
I was just going to ask you, does that statement, behavior is always the attempt to fill an unmet need, would that almost mean more like, you know, acting out behavior, negative behavior? Because if they were being calm and sitting there and being mellow is a form of behavior, but that wouldn't really signal an unmet need, would it?
Well, yeah, acting out behavior.
So it'd be more like
I
demonstrative behavior, or
well, I think sitting there being calm and quiet, we have to really engage with them and make sure, are they calm and quiet wanting to engage and not able to initiate? Or are they calm and quiet content?
Right.
Right?
so is one of the things we should do
So-
at that point is start trying to discover what it is then, to the best of our ability, like
Yeah.
be a detective or...
Yeah. But not, I mean, in the same way, you gotta kind of know when to hold them and know when to fold them, right? Like, I didn't go on and on and on with this gentleman around his armpit and the ceiling when I realized there were diminishing returns. The need for him was for someone to get how frustrating this was.
Validate his feelings
The
again.
feeling under my armpit was an urgent, uncomfortable experience for him. And I was able to convey for him, I get that you have an urgent, uncomfortable situation. I'm so sorry I can't help you with it, that must be frustrating. So we don't need to like walk them around the house trying to search things out. That might create more anxiety, right? Because they're now getting the sense, who's in charge here? Nobody knows what's going on.
Confusing to them.
But we might try to offer, and you'll see that your answer, I hope, your question, I hope, will be answered when we talk more about the specific tips and techniques. This is still just the basic principles. And coming back to somebody sitting down, even if they're sitting and being content, I would say that that behavior is filling the need. The need, before they were sitting and feeling content, they needed to feel peaceful and content. Sitting there calm and quiet met the need. So until there's a new need, no reason to act differently. Does that make sense? So all behavior, actually. That behavior is just currently meeting the need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, essentially it does it, although I guess at that point I would just feel like there's not, it seems like there would be times when there is not an unmet need.
Yeah,
But
sometimes
still
the
there
need's
is-
being
but
met
there's
by the
still a
behavior. Sure, and the behavior's meeting it. If the need wasn't met, then they'd have to act differently. Before that behavior, the need was unmet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I was
So
just thinking
during
that
the time
maybe
that
it
it's
needed a
met-
qualifier, you
Yeah.
know,
So that behavior met the unmet need. Before they behaved that way, they needed to feel content. They sat there peacefully and quietly and it met the need. Why change if the need's still met? Behavior met the need, but there's not an unmet need right now, so the behavior doesn't have to change. And I think it'll make more sense as we go through some of the principles and get into the nuts and bolts.
That would just be physical, I mean, no, what if it's an emotional need?
No, contentment and peace is not physical necessarily. I mean, I can be content in how my body feels comfortable, but I also can be content that I don't have want for anything. I could be content that I'm not anxious. So the emotional need, you feel so frustrated right now. It can be physical or emotional. We're going to get into that. I'm mindful of the time, so I want to make sure we get to stuff. Number 4 here, learn that to enhance communication with a person with dementia requires a commitment to remain connected regardless of the content of the conversation. That was the whole point of the video clip, right? We're joining in their reality. The content isn't so important as the feeling, because we know people maintain emotion. And when we start getting into content, we enter into the realm of logic and reasoning. And we know by definition, dementia includes impaired logic and reasoning. So as soon as we start using logic and reasoning, we're barking up the wrong tree. Number 5, understand that changing behavior takes time, effort, and patience. Reward yourself often for working toward change.
This is important to me. It was to me when I was involved with my patient, right here.
Yeah,
This to me made everything else happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't give yourself the time and the space, all these other concepts don't work out. They don't come into play.
That's right. That's right. So this doesn't say give yourself, reward yourself every time you get it right. This doesn't say reward yourself for being the perfect caregiver. Reward yourself for working toward change. Being mindful about what you're doing. None of us has to be a perfect little caregiving robot. That's not my goal. We get to be human beings, and other human beings are able to endure human beings. They've been enduring them their whole life. So even if they've had dementia, you get to have some flaws. You might say something you regret. You might say something that makes something worse. Just note to self. Note to self. And fall on the sword, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm such a dingbat. What was I thinking? You know, and move on. The one blessing about dementia is you're always in the moment. So often,
Right now, almost now.
so often we keep the person with dementia's brain on the uncomfortable topic longer than it would ordinarily stay there, because we continue to process with them rather than connecting and moving on. And we're going to talk about that technique. So now I want you to pull out the one page. You have an annotated version of this. That's not the one I want you to pull out. Just the one page tips for interacting with a person with dementia. Yes. All the other things in your packet are just for reference later on. The first one here, reassure, reassure, reassure. Everybody's heard this. Everybody's heard this before. But what does it look like? If you're taking notes next to this, write down reassure to the emotion, not
Right.
the word.
That's right.
To the emotions, not the words. We used to have the program that I worked for meant from 9 a.m. until 3 in the afternoon. And I almost said 3 in the morning. Boy, that would be a long day. From 9 a.m. till 3 in the afternoon. And folks would come in. From 9 to 10, we would kind of have refreshments as people were trickling in. We would have coffee or tea or donuts, whatever. And people would sit down at their tables. They, you know, we were all assigned. We had great ratios. You know, one or two clients to each attendant. And so we would greet the person we were assigned to that day, bring them over to our table and give them some juice or coffee, and we'd sit and just kind of chat until everybody got there. And at 10 o'clock we would go in to the other room for social circle where everybody introduced themselves. We talked about people's histories. We helped people kind of get in touch with their identity by reviewing their personal history. But you go around the room, and that took about an hour and a half. And for some people, they could stay engaged and be interested. And for other people, they'd fall asleep, or other people would get anxious. We had a gentleman who invariably, by like 9:30 in the morning, would be saying, I've got to get out of here. I've been stuck here all day. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And he used to say, well, you know, John, we're all going to leave at 3 o'clock. The bus comes at 3, I'm leaving at 3, your wife will come at 3. No, honey, you don't understand, I gotta leave. They're keeping me here, I've been stuck here for days, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of here. Really urgent. And sometimes it would get so bad, they're after me, they're gonna hurt me. You know, he really had to get out of there. And we would always say, well, John, you know, the dogs are coming today. We're gonna, the therapy dogs, you love dogs, we're gonna pet the dogs. You know, we're going to stay till 3 o'clock, we're going to have some lunch, some music, da-da-da. And John was demented, he wasn't stupid, which is something we have to remember, right? John looked at the clock and saw that it was 9:30 a.m. And I suggesting he stays till 3?
Yeah.
Honey, I got to get out of here. I mean, there would be times when we'd be playing tug of war with him at the door or wandering around the parking lot with him. He had to get out. He was actually literally terrified and had to get out of there. It wasn't just he didn't like it. He was urgently needing to get out of there. Well, we were reassuring to the words using logic and reasoning. Go figure, that didn't work. When I finally realized that, you know, we would sit and do some care plans, he was with me one day and he was doing his thing. I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of here. I put my hand on his, and I could do that because we had rapport. Not everybody wants to be touched, so you need to gauge that as well, but I could do that with him because we had rapport. I put my hand on his and said to him, gosh, it's a long day here, isn't it? He went, you ain't kidding, kid. Sometimes it's so refreshing to just talk about the darn elephant in the room. It is a long day. And even though he's only been there for 30 minutes, it felt like 3 days to him because people have that time confusion. You ain't kidding, kid. And I said, you know, if I have to hear roll out the barrel one more time on that accordion, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right, she was gonna die, right?
And he would chuckle, right? Because for some people, the accordion's really nice and lovely and they're up dancing. And for John, the accordion was overstimulating.
Couldn't handle it.
We run the risk of overstimulating people with dementia much more than we run the risk of understimulating. So all that noise and commotion for him was the trigger. If I have to hear that one more time, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he would chuckle. I'd say, but I'm sure glad we're together today. We better stick together. I'm going to look out for you and you look out for me. You got a deal. That's what he'd say to me.
Has to do that.
And then I would squeeze his hand and say, we're in this together, John.
Right.
And he would wink at me. Now that was about 4 sentences. It took me about 10 seconds. Doesn't mean he didn't say, I gotta get out of here 10 more times that day.
Yeah.
But our goal is not to stop the behavior from starting. Our goal is just to not add fuel to the bonfire. So if it happens 10 more times that day, I can say 4 sentences that in the moment will help him feel safe and secure and cared about. He wanted to go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. But what is home? Language becomes very symbolic
Right.
when people have dementia. Home is not necessarily a geographic location with certain 4 walls. With a person with dementia, home is more than likely a sense of feeling at home. And he's telling me, I don't feel at home here. That was the need behind the behavior. And my 4 sentences helped him feel more at home. Because feeling at home means we have a sense of personal power and control. I didn't take it away from him. When we change people's stories, we're taking their power away. I didn't tell him he didn't need to feel that way. I validated him, gave him some personal power and control over his experience. Feeling at home means we feel safe and secure. I told him, we're in this together. I'm going to stick with you, you stick with me. That helped him feel safe and secure. It also helped him feel like he had some value. Feeling at home is where you can let your guard down a little bit, where you can be yourself and not be judged. I could go on and on and on. But those 4 little sentences helped fill that need for him in that moment. Because he had dementia, the need didn't stay filled. Because remember, that hippocampus didn't store it. So I might have to do it over and over and over that day like a broken record. Doesn't mean what I'm doing doesn't work. It just means he forgot I did it. He forgot the need was met, so I got to meet it again and again and again. And that's part of what's so exhausting for family caregivers. They're doing it again and again and again, all day long, day in, day out, year in, year out.
Would he have forgotten that you held his hand? The physical touch seems part of
You
that.
know, I don't know. I don't know that he would remember the detail, but we do know that people with dementia have what they call intrinsic memory. I call it emotional memory. When I used to walk in the room, people's eyes would light up and they'd say, oh, there she is. And if I said to them, who am I? They don't know, oh, that's Alexis, the girl that helps us. I could be their mother, their sister, their teacher, their wife, or just that nice girl. But they had an emotional experience of saving face and feeling safe in my presence.
Right.
So their emotional memory of me is, that's the girl who makes me feel okay. When the nurse walked in the room, the nurse had a very different role than me. The nurse made them take their medicine that they didn't think they needed. The nurse cut their meat even though they thought they could cut it themselves. You know, the nurse had more rigid boundaries than I did. The nurse would walk into the room and they'd say, I'm not going with her. She's a bad one. Even if she wasn't coming to them with a cup of pills, right? Even if it was music time, nobody wanted to dance with poor Jean, because she was a bad one. Now, if you ask them, who is that? They wouldn't say that's Jean the nurse who makes us do things we don't want to do. They just know she's a bad one, I'm not going with her. They had memory for their emotional experience of a person or situation, but not memory for details. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because that taps into their emotional experience, and we know people maintain emotions. He might not remember the hand holding, but he might over time remember his experience of me.
Do you remember the story of the woman that was on TED that was a neurologist and she couldn't speak and her mother lay with her in bed? She had no knowledge. Did anybody see that? It was one of the most powerful things, and then she came back. Yeah, what a brilliant woman.
So the next one here, try to remain calm. Again, try to convey calm is what I would write if I were taking notes. Try to convey calm. You can't help it if you don't feel calm, right?
That's, you have to perceive that to them.
You do. You have to convey calm and confidence and find an appropriate outlet for your emotions somewhere else. This is not saying stuff your emotions until you explode. Please do not. It's not helpful for anyone, and then you won't be able to volunteer for this program. But convey calm in the moment from an empowered place. I'm having a rough time, but I'm going to take a few deep breaths, center myself, and while I'm with this person for the next 2 hours, I'm going to try to convey calm. Because we remember principle number 2, right? This is based in principle number 2. That our thoughts, attitudes, and actions significantly impact on their behavior. So the calmer we are, generally the calmer they are. Do not disagree with made-up stories. Now this one's easy enough if the story's lovely. I think I talked about this a little bit at St. Mary's, right? If the story is, you're so wonderful to me, I just love it, you come here every day, and really you've been there twice in your life, right? It's easy to go, why, yes I do. Right? But if the story is, not you again, you always take my stuff, that's harder to go along with, right? But we still have to go along with it. We still have to join in their reality because we will not be successful trying to convince them otherwise using logic and reasoning.
Not a chance.
That's where I would just throw myself on the sword. Oh, thank you for putting up with me. I'm so sorry. Were those yours? I didn't know. I'll bring them back next time. Right? I see you, I hear you, I get it.
Humility.
I see you, I hear you, I get it. We're not talking about lying to someone to get out of something. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm talking about conveying that you understand this is important to them. You understand this is what they think is the truth right now. And you're conveying to them, I'll do better next time. I get how important this is to you and I care about it. I see you, I hear you. Does that make sense? And they might go on and on and on and rag about you. And as long as you understand it in the context of the disease, they need to feel seen and heard. They feel threatened. Money being stolen, wives or husbands having affairs. Those are huge. Those are huge themes that we hear about a lot, and they're based in loss. This disease is robbing from me. I feel robbed. I feel as though somebody came into my house and took my stuff. Well, here you are in my house. Must be you. Right? It's not intellectually calculated. It's my experience informs my reality. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So not disagreeing with the made-up story, we all get that as a concept and think, yeah, absolutely. But sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder depending on what the topic of the story is. But it's based in principle number 4. We're going to remain connected regardless of the content. And then we can transition on to something else after we've connected. Give compliments often. We know that people with dementia often have very low levels of self-esteem, especially people in the earlier stages where they're still aware of their deficits, aware enough to feel bad about themselves, like when we heard Debbie's mom say, "This is your stupid mother." "Oh, Debbie, this is your stupid mother. I can't get anything right." At the time she left that message, she was early enough along in the process that she still was in and out of awareness about her deficits. And people's self-esteem tends to really, really plummet, especially in a culture where we're fed the message, what you're able to produce determines your worth, right? So if I'm less and less able to produce, I must be less and less valuable. So giving compliments often is a really easy way to introduce yourself as that safe person. I see you as a valuable person. Even if somebody has lipstick all over their face like Betty Davis and their bra on the outside of their shirt, I used that example a lot because we had a lot of people who did that. You know, their intent was to look beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Their intent was to look beautiful, or why bother with the lipstick? Why bother with putting on their bra and getting dressed? They just got it wrong. So I might walk up to them and say, boy, Marge, you just look beautiful today. Marge will understand that I see her need to feel beautiful. I get it. I wouldn't in that moment say, oh, Marge, here, let me help you with that lipstick, and come on in the bathroom, your bra goes on the inshirt, let me change you. I would not do it in that moment. I might wait till we're in the bathroom and then say, hey, Marge, it might be a little more, is this bothering you? This might be a little more comfortable. If I had a problem with it to the extent that I couldn't live with it. Otherwise, I might just let Marge have her bra on the outside of her shirt all day.
If you're staying in the house,
Yeah.
sure.
My man used to put his underwear on over his clothes and walk around the house, and I said, tell me, you look sharp, dude. I said,
Yeah.
you all right, man? He smiled at me, and he
Yeah.
just walked around the house in his underwear. He had his clothes on, but he put his underwear t-shirt and his underpants on and his socks.
Perfect.
And I said, Norman, you look good today, man. What's going on? You got a hot date? If he just smiled,
Great.
and he'd just walk around the house, it didn't hurt me.
'Cause
And
it's-
after a while, he went back to bed.
Right, because the need was to feel sharp.
Yeah, I told him, you look sharp
Yeah.
today, dude.
That behavior was
Even
an
if
attempt to fill
he's
that
saying
need.
that they can be rock stars.
There you go.
I told him, oh yeah. I said,
So giving compliments often is a really good way, especially when someone's driving you crazy, right? When somebody's walking around doing this.
oh, Norman used to do that all
You know,
the time.
getting into everything, making, what's this? I don't even remember. Yes.